Hello, Poop Shoot. It's me, back again with some stuff I've been up to lately. Got extra stuff today, so I'm going to talk fast and go fast because my stupid phone, as you know, has no goddamn memory. So, first up, we watched this movie on Netflix, I do believe, earlier this week. Kicking and Screaming. This is a 2005 Will Ferrell comedy where he plays kind of a nice guy named Phil Weston who's not too aggressive. He's really nice. He's kind of ho-hum. His father is Buck Weston, a real aggressive guy who owns a chain of sporting goods stores where Phil sells vitamins at his pill store, Phil's Pills, whatever it's called. And Buck is also a very successful coach of the region's most successful Little League soccer team. And Phil's son, Buck's grandson, Sam, is on the team. But one day, Buck releases Sam and sends him to the Tigers, the last place team in the whole league. Buck has treated Phil, his own son, much the same way throughout his whole life. Just always, never played him in soccer. When they were at a soccer game and Pele kicked a ball into the stands, Phil actually caught it, but Buck kind of took it from him, and it's his prized ball. He's always been kind of a dick to his son. So when Sam goes to the Tigers and the coach doesn't show up the first game, Phil steps in just temporarily to, I'll coach him today and whatever. And it goes horribly. They lose. But one day, Phil's over at Buck's house and they're having a barbecue or some shit. And Mike Ditka is actually the neighbor of Buck. And so Phil gets talking to Mike Ditka and he goes, "You're coaching a soccer team against Buck? You want me to coach with you? I'll do anything to beat that asshole." These two guys hate each other, right? So Ditka comes on as the assistant coach to the Tigers, and they still are losing, but they're starting to make some at least structure and improvements. And eventually they find Ditka shows Phil these two young Italian kids at this deli, and they're amazing at soccer. So Phil recruits them. They join the team. These guys are amazing. They start winning. So it's kind of how the season plays out as these two teams, father versus son coaches, are destined to meet in the finals, and the ride that is taken along the way. And Phil along the way loses his own way and becomes so obsessed with winning and beating Buck that he benches his own son, much like Buck did to Phil all those years ago. So it's kind of how everything resolves itself in the end. And of course, being a Will Ferrell movie, it's more of a family geared comedy, but still funny nonetheless because Will Ferrell is comedy gold, as you know. Next up, recently we finally finished watching season 13 of The Simpsons. This season originally aired late 2001 through early 2002. This collection contains all 22 seasons or episodes of the season on 4 discs. Typical Simpsons season. Some of the highlights. Springfield is announced the fattest town in America, which leads Marge to go on an anti-sugar crusade. Homer ends up breaking his jaw or something, so he has to have it wired shut. So instead of being his buffoonish self all the time, he's forced to listen. So he starts becoming a more sensitive, more thoughtful kind of guy, which eventually, in the end, drives Marge nuts. And she wants her boorish idiot husband back, right? There's the annual Treehouse of Horror episode, of course. Chief Wiggum is incompetent, and so he ends up getting fired, and Homer starts a private security company with Lenny and Carl, and they end up taking over the policing duties in Springfield, which is funny. Lisa hangs out with some college kids and poses as college kids. What else happens? There's a bunch of stuff. A really, really funny season. I've heard that people fell out of love with The Simpsons when there's a season where it started to turn into more of a musical kind of thing. Like every episode seemed to be a musical. I haven't hit that range in the seasons yet. I haven't seen that yet. They always have one or two here and there. But I haven't quite seen that yet. That season was just as good as any other so far that we watched before it. So it's still A-okay. And there's an ill-fated trip to Rio, Brazil. And Homer ends up going on medicinal marijuana and ends up becoming Mr. Burns' top aide instead of Smithers. So lots of funny stuff happens. Those are two that just popped into my head again. Next up, a bunch of games that we completed. First up, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. this is a fighting game, but it has a storyline, and you can play through the story. So Jeddah Doma, from the Capcom universe somewhere, I don't know what game he comes from, but he's kind of this demonish creature. He goes to Death in Earth's realm and says, I want to team up, and we're going to take over the world or some shit. Or take over both of our worlds. And so she's like, okay. So they scheme, and they recruit Ultron and Thanos to join their cause, but they're just playing those two guys, and they get them a couple of Infinity Stones, and they say, we're going to need all 6 to pull this thing off. So they've got those two guys in, but Jeddah and Death are going to betray them in the end. So Ultron and Thanos go looking for the Infinity Stones. Along the way, Ultron comes crosses paths with Sigma from the Capcom universe, which is one of Mega Man's archenemies, and they become Ultron Sigma. So Ultron Sigma is kind of the first real boss and dictator of the action in the game. So it's these two worlds, a convergence between two worlds, Earth and the Avengers and all the Marvel characters, and the Capcom universe, where we see all Mega Man, Street Fighter, Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins is in it. So these characters all come together to fight this threat. So you get to control mostly the good guys along the way, and it's usually a team up between a Marvel and a Capcom guy, and you can tag in and out of each battle, and enhancing your abilities along the way. A lot of the time you're in possession of, as the game gets later in the stage, in the later stages, you're in possession of an Infinity Stone, and you can use it to augment your powers and stuff like that. So basically just a street fighting game. Very well done. Again, street fighting games I find are very one-dimensional. Once you've played through them, you usually have no reason to go back. But this one was a joy all around in terms of how it looked. The graphics are amazing. The storyline was amazing. I love Marvel and all of its heroes. I love Capcom as a video game company, probably my favorite, and all the different franchises they have with them, especially Mega Man. So it was a really cool cast of characters, story, gameplay, sound, and the game executed pretty well too. It didn't mean I didn't get frustrated, because there were some really hard battles along the way. But really well done game. And then as you go along, the story unfolds. Ultron Sigma becomes Ultron, I can't remember, but some even bigger boss in the end. You have to release Thanos to try and help you, and he gets involved. So there's all these plot twists along the way as Ultron Sigma tries to kill all humans by turning them kind of into robots or automatons along the way, sort of thing. So really cool game.